Alright, since I had a hell of a lot of fun reviewing Hayop a few days ago, I thought to myself, why not double down on the Pinoy pride and make another video about the movie? Lo and behold, here we are. This time around, I feel like listing down the bits and pieces of Filipino culture shown in the film in no particular order. Hopefully this will be educational for you, and you can pick up a thing or two about my country. And after that, I'll be going over the English dub by Studiopolis Inc., which I just got done watching. Because of the in-depth nature of this video, there will be spoilers abound, so if you haven't seen the movie yet but want to, tread carefully. The first is a rather small detail, but still worth acknowledging. When Nympha returns to her home province, upon greeting her mother, she takes her paw and touches it on her forehead. This is a common and even mandatory form of greeting among Filipinos, who, like a lot of East Asian cultures, recognize seniority, especially within one's family, and give it due reverence. The gesture is usually, but not always, accompanied with the saying, "Mano po," a formal way of asking for the person's hand, and thus the entire greeting is known as Bhagmomano. Loosely translated, it means to be blessed by one's elders. So if you're in a Filipino household and you're in the presence of a man or woman many years your senior, you take their hand and touch it on your forehead. It's the best way to be in their good graces, and I dare say it's even the only way to be in their good graces. Well, not really the only way, but even if you're not a family member, propriety towards the old folk is regarded especially highly among the people. Another neat piece of the film's faithfulness to the country is the architecture. To be specific, I'm talking about the mansion of the Villanueva family. It's a traditional stone house, or bahay na bato, one of the many remnants of the Philippines' days as a Spanish colony. These are an evolution of the original bahay kubo, or nipa huts, except for the Filipino upper class. So aristocrats, politicians, oligarchs, business moguls, those kinds of people. Despite what the name suggests, these buildings aren't entirely made of stone, and sometimes are composed more of other materials than stone. They've since remained a relic of the past, having declined in popularity after World War II. The next one's more major, and absolutely worth touching on. A big part of Nympha's entire character is her blue-collar status. Filipinos who hail from provinces tend to move to the city to land at least some decent earning work, and a portion of their earnings go to their families in the provinces. Nympha sending some of the money she earns to fund her younger sister Linda's education, often at the expense of her own livelihood, is an accurate depiction of this, and this trend is most apparent in the working class. The more extreme type of this trend is when Filipinos travel to another country to find work. These people are called OFWs, short for Overseas Filipino Workers, and in their case, the term used for sending goods back home is called balikbayan, a portmanteau of the words for return and country, whose precise meaning is repatriate. The term refers to both the tradition and the delivered goods. Note that this is different from when OFWs return to the country and bring these goods themselves, which is called pasalubong. Pero hindi lang pera ang pinapadala sa Pilipinas. Iba't ibang bagay pinapadala ng balikbayan, katulad ng pagkain, gamot at damit na kadalasang iniimpake sa karton na hahakutin ng courier sa barko o eroplano. Pagkatapos pumasa ng quarantine of course. Lalo na ngayon na naapektuhan tayo ng COVID. Yan ay isa sa mga maraming halimbawa na pinag-uunahan ng mga Pilipino ang kanilang pamilya. Most of the time anyway. In my review, I brought up the film's counterparts to real-life objects. Besides the usual pop culture nods and fictional equivalents of internationally famous brands that are given at this point, there are many famous brands scattered throughout the film that Filipinos, and only Filipinos, will immediately recognize. Just off the top of my head, you've got Toy Kingdom, Land Bank, Mang Tomas, Century Tuna, Royal True Orange, Solane, and that ain't even all of them. So these props are by no means throwaway, and show that avid Leongoran and Rocket Sheep's attention to detail extend to even the most minuscule articles. At the beginning of the movie, again, no particular order, one of the establishing shots is that of a crowd of protesters milling around a billboard sign with Inigo on it, advertising a land development plan for the area of Sampaloc, which is where the film mostly takes place. Remember when I said in my review that the Philippines has a problematic socioeconomic gap? It's actually the worst in Southeast Asia. For reference, the poverty incidence stood at 16.6% in 2018, which, if you can believe, is an improvement, having gone down from 23.3% back in 2015. There are a bunch of factors that play into this massive rich-poor disparity between education and the ever-present political corruption in the country. Itself its own can of worms that I am not opening in this video. And don't even get me started on how COVID has screwed over the impoverished even more. Those poor people. Back to the topic at hand, the land development plan for Sampaloc by the Villanueva family is something of a parallel to the ongoing anti-poverty efforts within the country, which have been met with criticism for instead being anti-poor and even anti-labor. Not saying that Inigo, or the entire family for that matter, are amoral assholes like many Filipino politicians. At worst, Inigo is merely complicit with these practices. If he were actively endorsing them, then he and Nympha wouldn't have gone out with each other at all, for how much that's worth. I mean, hindi naman siya katulad ni Duterte, o kahit na si Marcos. One of the praises that I heaped upon Hayop Ka is its bravery in including these confrontational themes. The other such theme is unplanned and underage pregnancies, a major problem in a country where abortion has long since been outlawed and met with harsh penalties. It began with the 1870 Penal Code, which the Spaniards brought to the Philippines back when it was still under Spanish rule and remained in effect even after the Declaration of Independence in 1898, all the way up to 1930, when it would undergo a drastic revision. Chapter 1 of the revised Penal Code covers the destruction of life, and Section 2 of that chapter is dedicated to infanticide and abortion. Furthermore, Article 2, Section 12 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution illustrates the value of family life, especially the lives of the mother and the unborn child. Article 15 of the Constitution is fully dedicated to family as a concept and consists of a list of provisions pertaining to the matter. Sadly, there aren't that many provisions to help men and women who face non-consensual circumstances or circumstances beyond their control, and the few provisions there are conflict with these parts of the Penal Code and the Constitution. Linda bearing a child with her next-door neighbor at the tender age of 17 has more than just a nugget of truth to it. Her age group, being 15 to 19 years, has seen less than 200,000 pregnancies between 2015 and 2019. Of the childbirths that occur within that age group, 31% of them are unplanned. And teenagers living in rural areas, which is what Linda is, start bearing children earlier than teenagers living in urban areas. That's on top of the given difficulties of teenage parenthood. At least the neighbor looks to be a supportive husband and father in the future, and judging by her contentment with being a mother, she consented to the encounter with her neighbor in the first place. So there's a lot more layers to this than one might think. Nympha's own pregnancy also has weight to it, but that's more due to the irony of her telling her sister off for throwing her life away, only to discover that she'd been bearing a child for 9 weeks the very next day. And as I've said before and I'll say again, it's a gutsy move by Avid Leongoran to show any of these themes at all. Gutsy and commendable. On a more lighthearted note, besides the soap opera parodies, some of the more Filipino-esque humor comes in the form of clever wordplay. When Nympha calls Papa George during his late-night radio show, there's a sight gag of Nympha's head turning into a mango as Papa George rightfully lambasts her for her actions. It's a joke on how Nympha was being a manipulator throughout the film, or a user, or manggagamit.
Yun po ang naisip ko para hindi rin mawala si Inigo.
My gosh, that's not love, Nympha! Mapanglin lang ka. Love is honesty and truth. Isa kang mangga!
Ha? Bakit po?
Manggagamit!
Mango, manga, get where I'm coming from? And at the very end when Nympha and Jerry are dining at the beef stew joint, Jerry makes a wisecrack or so about the pares, or the beef stew, and that it goes well with mares. Pares and mares both meaning sir and madam respectively in Tagalog.
O ano ang kapartner ng pares?
Siomay?
Hindi. Edi, mares. Anak ng pares at mares.
Ano?
Inaanak. Di ba? Anak ng kumpares at kumares.
It's pretty witty humor, all things considered, but it does feel exclusively Filipino. With that being said, pag-uusapan ko na ang English dub na nanggaling sa Studiopolis Inc. at anong pwedeng maaasahan na may iba sa original Tagalog. First and foremost are the voice actors. As far as the main cast is concerned, Nympha is voiced by Reba Burr, standing in for Angelica Panganiban, Roger is voiced by Mick Wingert, standing in for Robin Padilla, and Inigo is voiced by Todd Habercorn, standing in for Sam Milby. The rest of the cast are interesting choices. To put it bluntly, Tara Sands, Cherami Lay, Cassandra Morris, Dave B. Mitchell, Kyle McCarley, Sissy Jones, and Roger Craig Smith? Well, I'll be damned. Sounds like the makings of an excellent English dub, right? Sorta? What did I say in my review again? How are the jokes gonna translate from Filipino to English? Well, since English is a second language in the Philippines, I don't see this being that difficult. At least I hope it won't be. Yeah. Guess I'm gonna have to eat those words now, huh? It's not outright bad per se, but how exactly do I put it? I guess I'll start with the obvious. It came as no surprise to me that a good chunk of the film's content got lost in translation. Parts of the film that are decidedly Filipino don't feel the same in the English dub as they do in the original audio, and that's unavoidable. As an aside, Todd Habercorn, I love you, no homo, and I'm glad to have met you at a convention in 2015, but it's pronounced Batangas.
Isn't it your day off tomorrow? Come with me to Batangas. Need to check one of our properties there.
Isn't it your day off tomorrow? Come with me to Batangas. Need to check on one of our properties there.
And Riba, no offense to you either, but it's pronounced Sampalok.
Diyan na lang po ako sa sakayan.
Wag na. Malakas umalad. Where do you live?
Sa Sampaloc po.
I could just get a ride at that bus stop.
It's pouring out there. Let me drive you. Where do you live?
Over in Sampaloc.
Anyway, you can't expect one culture of people to have the same sensibilities as another. That's a given. Where I really want to get at, though, is that it extends to even the emotional impact of certain scenes. Here are a couple of examples. First will be the original audio, and then the English dub.
Isa kang janitor! At janitor lang habang buhay!
Ginagawa ko yan ng may dignidad. Ikaw ang hindi makontento.
You're capable of being a janitor, and that's the end of your road. Janitor forever.
At least I know my place in this world. You're the one who's never satisfied.
Isa kang pasapat! Pinaghihirapan ko ang pagtustos sa'yo! Alam ko naman yun, ate. Yung bata, wala lang talaga sa plano eh. Eh bakit kasi hindi ka nagkalendaryo?
You ungrateful slut! All this time I've been out there busting my ass off for you!
Believe me, I know you have, sis. The baby, well, you know, it was kind of a surprise.
Why didn't you use some contraception, you idiot?
Friend, sumasalo lang ako sa mga pinagsawaan mo. Yung sa tingin mo hindi na uso. Sa akin, in na in pa din. Ukay ka nga, bro!
Friend, I'm just picking up something that you discarded. I mean, what's old news to you turns out to have a particular value to me.
You tramp, you're nothing but a sneaky bitch!
Yes, I said that the film's narrative, while satirical, still derives from soap operas, not helped by Philippine media's obsession with the genre to the point of hemorrhage, but in these cases, that melodrama is what gives these scenes that punch, that emotional sway. In the case of Nympha calling Papa George over the phone during his radio show, the difference could not be any more night and day. Piola Pascual brought life to Papa George by virtue of his over-the-top charisma, the kind of overacting that soap operas are defined by, and would fit right at home in a medium that's as rife for exaggeration as animation. His dynamic delivery makes his words cut deep towards Nympha, and in turn, the audience.
So, umakyat ka pala na hagdan. Yan ang happy mo. Ang tawag sa'yo, social climber.
The truth is, you're trying to get yourself to a better position in the world.
You, my dear, what we like to call a social climber.
O, kita mo na. O, tapos, ako na rin magsasabi sa'yo ng problema mo. Walang gustong maging ama ng bata.
Well, now, that may be. But regardless, it doesn't address the real bottom line problem here. Apparently, neither one of them wants to be the father of your child.
Sasabihin ko po sana na siya ang ama ng bata.
Gaga! Oh my God! You're crazy! Hindi ka lang malibog. Masama ka pang babae.
Well, I was thinking about telling the guy that he's the baby's father.
No way! Oh my God! You're crazy! You're not just out of control sexually, you're an evil person!
Not trying to say that the English dub is devoid of emotion, it's just that the Filipino touch added a little bit more to the film. Speaking of that scene, it's also an example of the Filipino aspect not quite being realized in the English dub. I'm talking about the visual pun of Nympha being called a manggagamit and her head turning into a mango.
Love is honesty and truth. Isa kang mangga!
Ha? Bakit po?
Manggagamit!
Love is honesty and truth. You are a user.
How is that?
I know a manipulator when I hear one.
And the ending with Nympha and Jerry at the beef stew joint, and Jerry's hurricane of puns about beef stew, or pares. Have a listen.
Anak ng pares at mares.
Ano?
Inaanak. Di ba, anak ng kumpares at kumares. Laughter, laughter!
Tatawanin mo pa ako.
Hey, you know what's great about us frogs?
I don't.
I forgot. However, I've been told we are quite riveting. Laughter, laughter.
Please make me laugh more.
Yeah, doesn't quite work. The overall performances are fine though, just nothing all that mind-blowing. Reba Burr managed to make Nympha oh so thirsty, as well as Angelica Panganiban did. While not as much of an asshole as Robin Padilla, Mick Wingert still captured Roger Europeo as a short-fused mongrel hunk, and pronunciation pet peeves aside, Todd Haberkorn is as smooth-talking a voice for Inigo as Sam Milby. On a technical aspect, I have to say that the dub of this film suffers from a common problem that other English dubs, as quality as they are, also suffer from. That's the superfluous additional lines of dialogue. It kinda feels like overcompensation. I guess it was either that, or if the studio were to have directly translated from the original language, there'd be a few seconds of awkward dead air. But that shouldn't really be an issue. Fewer words with more deliberation and emoting land better and get the point across more effectively than adding 3 or 4 more words or sentences. How does the saying go? Brevity is the soul of wit? Yeah. That's it. And you know the funniest part of this? The original Filipino performances only slightly edge out the English dub, yet the cast is more known for their live-action work than voiceover work. I mean, hell, Angelica Panganiban herself said that she had a daunting task ahead of her when working on this film. In an interview she did leading up to the film's release, she stated how limiting it was to work in a recording booth as opposed to a movie or television set. She faced the usual challenges voice actors face on a regular basis. Like how her voice should sound like, should it be loud or quiet, should it be flirty or even flirtier, or is she overdoing it? And pushing herself too hard to the point where once you've finished for the day, you're so tired that you feel like your lungs are about to cave in. Luckily for her, Avid Leongoren managed to help her out along the way, and she did enjoy bringing life to an animated character. What I'm really getting at is that as respectable as both the original Filipino performance and the English dub are, it's funny that the former just barely comes out on top despite the actors being way out of their element, and one of those actors even going on record to explain how she was out of her element, yet the latter is composed of established names in the voiceover business and only turns out an okay effort. Again, this ain't an indictment on the VAs or the dub as a whole. It's just an interesting thing to note na kapag may tamang direktor na bahala sa paggawa ng pelikulang animasyon, ang mga artistang masanay sa harap ng kamera ay maaaring pagbutihin ng pag-record sa likod ng microphone. If you were to ask me what score I'd give the English dub of Hayop Ka, it's a 3 out of 5. So tingin ko, pasado lang, hindi nakakamangha. And I gotta say, covering this movie has been an enriching experience. Really getting in touch with my country and culture and appreciating them more, both the good and the bad, was a lot of fun. Hayop Ka's unabashed representation of the country and culture made the experience even more fun. I hope you all watching at home found this as enriching and enjoyable as I did. I'm proud to have shared with you a part of me that I've hardly brought up before, but still hold near and dear to me. And here's to Filipino animation. May the future bear a host of promise for this wonderful industry. Speaking of which, that upcoming Netflix show Trece has for sure got my attention. I'll have to read the comics first though, if only I could get my hands on them. Until next time, I'm the one and only CR Martin, once again proudly bidding all of you mabuhay, and also bidding you maligayang bagong taon.